because maybe someone will join later, and we have already exceeded our time by 5 minutes with technical things. And our call is being recorded, so we will, if someone cannot join us, then they can listen to it later on.
Okay. So what I was going to discuss today is the moments of truth, because it's one of the speeches that you can do in the special series, and it's good for clubs if you do it right. I have seen the results of maybe 6 different teams filling out these, and they're never the same. So I think sometimes people's interpretations of what they mean can be different. And I think it's not only about doing it, but implementing it, finding the results, and then making an action plan and having people responsible and a target date. Because lots of times you might do this and it seems like a relevant exercise, but then they just seem to dump the papers and nothing really happens. So I'd encourage you, if you are to do the moments of truth, that perhaps you can log it on a computer and share it with the members, and then decide, okay, we're struggling here and we should improve on this. And just for those that don't know, it's a worksheet that's broken into 6 different parts. And sometimes people, they'll ask different groups to do different sections, or you can actually get everybody to do the whole lot. And you number the parts 1 to 5, whereas like number 1 would be we never meet the standard. Number 2, we rarely meet it. 3, sometimes. 4 is usually, and 5 is we always. And what I've noticed from some of the ones that I've seen is that you can actually see a 5 and a 1 from different people. So there's a misunderstanding a lot of the time. So I'm going to just briefly go through this, but I'll also kind of give some more tips on the marketing side, because at the end of the day, I believe marketing is everything. So it's number 1 on the sheet is first impressions. And in case people aren't familiar with this, I'm sure Elena will be able to put it up. It's available on toastmasters.org. So you just type in Moments of Truth worksheet and you'll be able to download it. But if you have any problems, either reach out to Elena or myself and we can send you a copy of this. I didn't want to actually go through it and show the sheet up, because what will happen is people then would just start reading it and not engage. And I just want to kind of give different points and not necessarily pick on every single thing, because sometimes it's repeating itself. So the very first one is first impressions. And you have the thing is basically saying guests are warmly greeted and introduced to officers and members. And it might seem like a normal thing, but I have seen situations where people are ignored. I always go up, talk to people, and find out where they've heard about us. But there's times where you'll see even experienced Toastmasters and they won't even talk to them. So you should try to have it as a habit that members, when they see a guest, go up, introduce yourself, find out where they, found out about the club, because that's tracking your marketing. Was it Meetup? Was it LinkedIn? Was it the Facebook event? And just find out about the person. And then you kind of know what their objectives are, why they're actually at the meeting. Do they want to get engaged in public speaking? Sometimes it's just for socializing. The next one then is about guest book and name tags provided. I'm not really a fan of that. I've seen it used twice, 2 different clubs. We tried it on our one, and it's actually a lot of work, because when you have guests, you have a different badge, or you're just writing a pen. And then when people are talking to each other, they're more looking at the top and trying to get the name. So if you have where it's working, obviously stick with it. But if you haven't implemented that, I wouldn't really bother. Personally, I don't think it's worth the effort. I've seen it one club that bought all the different tags, got the names of the members. They started using it for maybe a month and it just phased out. People, because like if you're on stage and you're recording your speech, you don't want this tag hanging off you either. So I personally don't think that having the tags is of benefit. Professionally arranged meeting room is the next point on that. That definitely makes a difference. We've moved one club there now from a university to kind of a business startup location, and it's definitely had a big impact. So if a room looks professional, and if it depends on the audience you're trying to attract as well, the type of club, having a decent room. So even if you have a location and it's just convenient, maybe perhaps think about changing. And you know, you can get these rooms. We have all the places, the 3 clubs I'm in, none of them are paid for. And previously when we were in the university, they provided it for us. And now we've the morning club and an entrepreneur club, and they were happy to accommodate us. So we're there without having to pay, because when we're taking pictures, we're promoting them as well. So you can basically say, look, we'll be tagging your location. So if you're getting a hotel, you know, you might get a fancy room. So if your room isn't really professional looking, you know, nice decorations, consider changing the venue. Next point on that, first impressions, is a convenient meeting location. Obviously, you have your club where it is, but if you are deciding to move, don't move to the opposite side of town. Make sure you get all members engaged, and that you're not going to lose 3 or 4 members because you've decided to move locations, and especially if they don't have a car and they're not willing to travel. So just make sure that you engage your existing members. Next one then is guests invited to address the club. That's another one that you just have to play it by ear. Normally people will actually talk and everything, but we've had situations where somebody said, I don't want to talk today. And we just say, okay, thanks very much, and leave them go. But I have seen some people being pushy and trying to get them to talk, or try to get somebody to go and do the table topics. So my advice on that is, if somebody is really shy, you'll actually pick it up beforehand. You'll know if you have a good conversation before the meeting starts. You know, just let them breathe, and they'll see the atmosphere and everything in the club, and they'll come back themselves. Whereas I have seen a few times where it's like they put the pressure on the person and they don't come back. So just bear that in mind. And the final one in this first impressions is guests are invited to join. So I would have the details, have the sheet. And the problem sometimes is the VPM isn't always there. So you should have a backup for that. To be honest, most of the board members should kind of take part in that, because there'll always be, you know, 2 or 3 board members that'll be at the meeting. So have the sheets handy. If you've got a bag with the flags, the timing and all that, maybe perhaps have the membership forms in that, so they're easily accessible to whoever turns up. And then ensure that the VPM emails them as well and follows up. But don't be aggressive, because I've seen cases where people are turned off as well. They're like pounced on, and they get too many emails and too many phone calls, and that aggressive, you know, turns them away. So just be careful of that. So moving on to the next part, which is membership orientation. So the points that are covered in this is formal induction, including presentation of membership pins and manuals. So, like, I have seen one club where they really make recognition. If you do the icebreaker, you get the ribbon, you get the forms, and it just makes people feel welcome. So I think having that, the pins, the different things, or I mean, it's not really going into further details, but even if you've got experienced members, if they're getting different levels, completing a pat now as opposed to the older style, give them the rewards, you know, whether it's the level complete or the whole thing, and give them recognition. There's also sometimes people come up and they have to read the promise. And I personally don't like that, and I've asked other people if they liked it and they didn't. But some clubs, they get you to stand up when you're a new member and read through the promise. And my own personal opinion is I don't like it, and I don't do it in the club that I formed. And I've asked other people and they felt the same. So perhaps check with your members what they think. And if you're doing that, maybe rethink it. Next point on this one is assignment of a mentor. I've heard people, say they've been in a club for a few years and never had a mentor. And then there's other cases where somebody will just come on and ask, can you be my mentor? So if they see somebody that, they're inspired by, they'll come up and ask. The best thing is to try to get one person that's checking with them if they're interested in having a mentor, and let them try to connect with somebody that they have a bonding with, rather than assigning a mentor, because sometimes they mightn't be a suitable connection and it mightn't work out well. So if they can say to the person, say the VPE, I really like person X, I like their style and everything. And then they can ask and check, are they available to be their mentor? And that way then you can connect them. So that's something you can do for that. Next point is education programs and recognition systems discussed. I believe the VP and the mentor should be responsible for that. The reason why I mentioned two is because not always will one person do a job. So rather than assuming somebody's going to be looked after, or they know themselves, if the VP is kind of tracking where people are going, they can keep an eye, and then they can see from the system who's the mentor, and just talk to each other and making sure that the members are looked after. Next point is learning needs assessed. It's just kind of straightforward enough. Speaker roles assigned, and finally, members involved in all aspects of the club's activities. So they're kind of, that's just encouraging people to, take part in the different roles and everything. So that's that one. The third one is fellowship, variety, and communication. So the first point is kind of repeated, guests greeted warmly and made welcome. Next is enjoyable and educational meetings planned. I discussed that on the first call, and I think it's actually critical. It's kind of the next thing to your marketing, because if meetings aren't entertaining and good, people aren't really going to come back. At the end of the day, they want to smile, they want to laugh, they want to improve their speaking and just feel good, rather than just being bored. So make sure that you've got good, entertaining teams that will encourage people to come back. Next one then is regular scheduled social events. So my advice for that is kind of do it monthly. You could go for a meal, just go for a few beers, perhaps bowling, game of bowling. We've done that one night and it was good fun. Or when the weather is picking up, as it shall soon, is go for a barbecue. And that way just members are connecting better, and it just seems to bond. And you can always invite friends to these things so that they see that there's a nice group, and you might actually get friends then to come to the meetings just to check it out, and they might join. Next point is members participate in the area, district and international events. My advice is try to encourage everybody to take part in the competition, whether it's evaluation or speaking. And if they're not, that there'll be a judge, a time or whatever, and try to get them to go to the main events, because when they see a decent workshop, or especially when they go to the higher levels, you'll see how good the evaluators are and the speakers, and that can motivate you to actually become better. Interclub, next one then is interclub events encouraged. I see this is kind of mixed for people, because some people, their club is the thing and they don't want nobody else to, be told about other clubs. I'm totally in the opposite. I just promote Toastmasters and let people know kind of which one is which. For example, my one is the morning club is a business kind of club, and not everybody's interested in a 7 o'clock. There's also a Polish speaking club, because there's a lot of people coming and their level of English isn't great. So I tell them about that, and the other clubs. So if there's different clubs in your area, don't be afraid to let people know. And also you can kind of share speakers and everything. Like I encourage you, out of say 10 speeches, to do 2 in another club, even repeat a speech, because you'll get your evaluation and you can improve on it. So like some people will be members of two or 3 clubs. So there's no reason that somebody mightn't join both. The final point in this section is club newsletter, website published and regularly updated. My advice on the newsletter would be monthly. You don't want to do it more than that because there's a bit of work involved, and obviously you need somebody that's going to take the effort of doing it. Usually it would fall under the VP PR role, but because they're doing so much, perhaps somebody else could actually take it. Things you can do is just meet our members. You could kind of interview 1 or 2 different members and just let people know, and post the newsletter then on your open face group chat, not just on your members group, so that if you're building your open group, you could have a couple of 100 people on that, and when someone reads it, they might be interested in saying where the members from, what they're doing, why they've joined. And you can also include on your newsletter monthly events, what's happening when the meetings are, if there's district competitions and things like that. And just a few pictures as well, because that always works. Next, we'll move on to program planning and meeting organization. So this one, you have the program and agenda published in advance. What seems to be happening lately, because people are trying to reduce paper and all that, is just printing one for the timer and putting it on a board. Because if you're printing the agenda, giving it to everybody, they're just leaving it there and throwing it. But that's all. Depends on the people. But if you can if you're having guests coming and you're not giving out agenda, but members have access to it, perhaps let the guests, if you're not coming, be able to look at it and just know the times and just kind of stick to your times as well. Because it's important if you're going to state when the meetings are going to be. That's another point, actually. The meetings end and begin on time. Like I think I mentioned it in the first call, that one of the meetings, it's supposed to be 7 to 9, but plenty of times it went on till 9:30, and you have to remember that people have other commitments afterwards. So if you're stating that your time is that, you shouldn't be exceeding it by half an hour. I mean, the odd time you're going to overrun by a few minutes, but the Toastmasters should be tracking that and cutting things like table topics and stuff if you're exceeding, and making sure that you don't take too many speakers. Next one then is members know the program responsibilities and are prepared to carry out all assignments. So, like, to me, the Toastmaster should pick the team, should do it early, and pick the different people. The general evaluator then can pick the evaluators. And just if you have a few people, ensuring that the agenda is filled out. Because like some people are brilliant at it. If they're the Toastmaster, they're straight away filling the role, getting onto people, getting it done. And there's others, they'll just do nothing. And a meeting can kind of suffer because of it, because then it tends to get into panic stage on the last day. So try to fill your agenda as fast as possible. I discussed that. If you're a smaller club, when you have your meeting, like, make the commitment when you're there. Okay, who's going to be the Toastmaster next week? Who'd like to do a speech? Who's going to be general evaluator? Because when people commit like that, they'll always, unless something pops up that's really important, 90% of the time they'll actually be there at the meeting. Whereas if you don't do that, they won't take the roles and 2 or 3 won't come. So it ends up keeping the people there. And then if you've got a few guests, it just looks better because you've got more people at the meetings. All the projects are manual projects, so that's like, now we're going on to pathways, so just somebody's tracking that. It's normally the VP, so somebody's not just have got their own agenda, so they stick to that and everybody knows what's going on. What I've noticed, actually, and I think it's kind of important, is sometimes with the pathways, people are just kind of chugging through the paths and just doing a speech for the sake of a speech, nothing to do with actually what the requirements are. and they're doing themselves an injustice. So you should try to track that and make sure that whoever the speaker is, whether they do it electronically or in print form, that the evaluator knows exactly what the project is and they're evaluating based on that. Because I've seen we had a case where somebody done a speech and it had nothing to do with the actual project he was supposed to do. And if you're going to be doing things like that, you're not going to develop as well as you should. So the projects, the paths are designed in such a way that you'll constantly be improving if you're applying everything that you're learning. So my advice is just to, make sure you follow the system. Next one in there is the creative table topics and activities. What I've done on one is I have the Jenga game, which is the block game where you pull out the blocks, and I wrote the questions on it. So I asked people, come up and pull out the block, and that was the question you got. So that was one. I've seen other people where they have a hat and you pull out the question. You can have, say, a debate where you have the topic, and you can also have teams where two people are with each other on certain topics, competing against another couple of pairs, and that seems to be interesting. So just variety, because if you do the same thing the whole time, people get bored. So just try to do variety with everything, every role as well, and just keep people entertained. The final one, and this one is positive and helpful evaluations. It's an important one because I have seen people give new people really harsh evaluations, and it can make a member leave. So you should have a system to, like, the general evaluator should kind of pull the evaluator if he gives a really harsh evaluation, and kind of pick on a few positive points to lift up the speaker. And if somebody's doing something consistent, just to pull them aside and kind of let them know. I've seen a case where somebody has a habit of asking a speaker, especially if they're new, like, how do you think you done on a case of 1 to 10? And I don't think that's a nice question to ask somebody in a room full of, to them, usually a room full of strangers. So, just be cautious of that. Move on to the next one. And membership strengths. This is broken down, like the club has 20 or more members. So obviously if your club is, smaller and you're trying to grow, you wouldn't have that, but have a target. I've heard, and I believe in myself as well, 30 being the magic number, because you'll have kind of 15 to 20 people turn up if you have members. So I would don't be just pushing for the 20, try to push for 30, and that will help then. Members are retained is the next point there. Like, a lot of the time you'll have members leaving. I discussed last time that you might have one bad egg that's causing a lot to leave. So unless you're tracking why people are leaving, you'll never know. Sometimes, like on our club now, we've got people that moved abroad or moved to different cities. That's understandable. But if you've got people leaving for personality reasons, find out who's the person that's causing the most grief, and if it's consistent, you need to remedy the situation. Next point then is promotion of the club in the community or within the organization. Like, if you've got leaflets, I'd encourage you to have good leaflets with the location, a map. Just make it easy for people to find you, in a phone number, an email, the website. Nothing too blocky, just simple information with maybe a picture of someone speaking. There's plenty of the pictures that you can use in the Toastmasters.org. And like, if people are in a corporation, put them in locations where you can actually find it, and just try to get everybody engaged in doing a bit of promotion. Next point, clubs programs varied and exciting. We've discussed that, so it's kind of similar. Toastmasters sponsoring new members recognized. And finally, regular membership building programs. So you could do the mentorship program and stuff like that as well. That will help grow. I mean, if we can just jump onto a few things on what else you could be using for marketing. I've seen people have a business card, a Toastmasters business card. Maybe you might just have a club one that everybody uses, that because the more you get printed, the price drops dramatically. Or if you want to have them individually, you can do that using the Toastmaster logo, so people can hand them out. Especially if they're employees, if they've got their own business, they'll want to give out their own business cards. But if they don't, you can have a business card. Pins as well, the Toastmaster pins. Like some people wear the pins at the meetings and that's it. But like just for different businesses that I use, I'd always have a pin, whether it's PMP or a currency business that I had, because people will come up to you and go, "What's that about?" And you're straight in. So if you've got your Toastmaster pin or badge, people just out of conversation will ask you, and it's a good conversation starter, and perhaps they might come to your next meeting. Another possible is, there's a lot of different events where they put different things into the bag. So if you can make contact with them and ask, is it possible to put, the leaflet into the bag, things like TEDx events or other ones. Just make sure that you check with the organizer if it's allowed, and you can perhaps, give the leaflets. Another one is giving seminars to startups. I've done a workshop, and you can give a workshop on how to speak and different things without, making it just Toastmaster. But at the end, you can let people know we've got a Toastmasters club. So if you've inspired them, there's a good chance that people in the audience will actually come to your meetings and, hopefully join. Another thing you could do is have internal competition, see who brings the most guests in a month, just agree. You could put all, €5, 5 zloty or whatever into a kitty, and whoever does the most gets the prize, or, you agree to buy a drink, whatever. Just make it, that people are engaged. So, and like I've mentioned on the other one about Meetup, which I think is probably one of the best ones, and having the Facebook team and creating the event. Other things that you can use are Twitter. Like, I'm not sure about the other countries, but I personally don't feel it's great. In America, it might be okay, but I don't think Twitter is actually a great platform. LinkedIn can be, if you create a page, which you have to make it active, because it's a kind of a businessy profile, and people are interested in, the public speaking. So the LinkedIn might do it, and the YouTube as well, if you're uploading speeches. And just make sure to link everything. So on your Facebook, if you have a YouTube channel, cross-reference each thing so that people can find you, and they will, they should help bring some members. Going on to the final one, achievement recognition. Award applications immediately submitted to the world headquarters. I mean, it's the VP should be doing that, but you should also have a backup, perhaps the mentor, and maybe just train people and let people know, because if they don't know, it's important, especially if they're an employee. Getting the cert recognition might help them get a promotion, or just, that their bosses would be aware of it. So like there's times people just not even aware, they don't submit it. So I would think make a schedule of that, the members, where they're at, and that you have it ticked off who's getting the next award, and that will help. Progress charts displayed and maintained, next one. Then members' achievements formally recognized with a ceremony. It's like in one club, they use really good quality paper with the certificate on it, and it makes a difference. And if you get really crappy, cheap paper, or not do it at all, it just, it makes you feel good when you like, I keep all the different certs I get, and I appreciate them. That you get the ACS, or now it'll be the different PAT. So I think the members would appreciate it. So it's worth, getting the good quality paper and giving it to the members when they achieve an award. Next one is a club district and international leaders recognition. then club and members achievement, and DCP is used in planning. So you can actually track the DCP on toastmaster.org, see how many points you've got. And like some clubs, that's important. They want to be distinguished, get to 10 different points. So, that's, for me personally, it's not the priority. For me, the priority is actually making sure, that the members are engaged, they're coming back, and that leads to, engaging in the speeches, and the points will just come after themselves. So that's basically it. I just wonder, is there any questions?
So if you have any questions or issues with your clubs you're dealing with now, it's the time when you can unmute yourself and ask a question, or write a question in the chat box. Okay, so I think we have no questions for now. So we have this club coaching group on Facebook, which I encourage you to join, and we can take all our discussions there. We will publish there this meeting, and there are also other online meetings published with information on how to increase membership and increase quality of the clubs. So thank you very much, Roy, for those insights. It was very interesting. And I think that this Moments of Truth tool is something we should really bring to every club every 6 months, because it is really very important to go through all of this and to see whether we are doing it or maybe not so much, what we can improve, and so on.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you very much, and thank you everyone for attending our coaching call.
Yes, thanks for attending. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.